Hello everybody, I'm Helix, and today we're going to be reviewing A Township Tale. It's a sort of survival, crafting, exploring MMO light. I say light because on Quest you can only have about 8 players, whereas on PC I think you can have like 30. But today we're going to be looking at the Quest version. I'll be going over the sort of pros and cons of each aspect of the game in regards to accessibility and playability if you are visually impaired, like myself. So, with all that out of the way, let's get on with the review. Quick disclaimer, flat screen really doesn't do VR justice, so things may look bigger or closer than they actually are if you're watching on a tablet, phone, or computer. So, for example, the hammer and anvil may look pretty close, but actually it's about 10 feet away. I have to come over here, grab it. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so to start off, this is the home world. It's pretty much the main menu, and in fact the only menu really in the entire game. But it's not just a menu, it's physical, so you can actually walk around to the different menus and get closer to them, unlike most other VR games, which is just like point and click. In fact, there is no point and click in the game. You have to physically poke the buttons in order to get them to work, which can be a downside if, say, you're trying to get closer and you're just trying to get closer to read something and oops, you accidentally pressed this button that you didn't realize your hand was over here. So that can be a problem if you're trying to look at stuff like this over here, which is the game's premium currency, which is used for buying cosmetic stuff. There is smooth locomotion, if you notice, I'm using that, which may not seem like a great thing, and it isn't for some people, but if you're blind, seeing this little teleportation circle can be actually kind of hard. So sometimes you may not know where you're going, like right out here, the blue on the screen, that's not very good contrast, so it's easier to just walk around. There is an accessibility settings, accessibility features in the game. So right now this pretty much just means you can adjust your height, so if you're tall or short or in a wheelchair or something, there's that. And there is also an accessible dock, which I'll talk about later in a different portion of the video. But the fact that these accessibility settings are in here shows that the developers do care about implementing accessibility for people with disabilities, so that's great. The one downside is maybe you noticed, see I'm getting pretty close to these menus, which is great, but the text is really weird, this font that they're using, and this is throughout the whole game on the signs in the servers and stuff. See, look at that, I think that's a G for grab assist. It looks like a Pac-Man though. And then, where's the other one that always confuses me? That looks like a C, that's a T, for toggle name displays. And that one too, that's an H, but it always kind of looks like, from a distance, it looks like a B or maybe an R. So, just keep that in mind. If you're trying to read signs, you may be confused. But that's all for this area. I'll move on to the next thing. This is the character creator. First thing you may notice is this thing is life-size. So you don't have to try and guess what you look like looking at a tiny little picture, or guess what you look like looking in a mirror like in VR Chat or some other games. This you can get nice and close to see if you're wearing gloves or what type of clothes you're wearing, what kind of belt you've got. It's like a simple belt. Just don't get too close, because he will eat your soul. He's even got a tongue. Now, it is really easy to use. If you, say, don't want this beard, you can just rip it off. I imagine that's quite painful. And just chuck it. Same thing with the hair. Rip it off, chuck it. And if you want to add something... that was hair. Just take some hair, grab it, plop it on there. And you can compare them. Do that. See? Now, one thing with this is, again, we have the touch buttons. So you touch them to switch, and if you're not careful, if you're just not aware of where your hands are, and you're trying to look at something, you may accidentally touch when you don't mean to. So just be aware of where your hands are in relation to those buttons. Another thing I don't quite like about this, and you might find difficult to use, is the body types. They look very similar. Like this one and this one. I cannot tell the difference. Maybe once they're on the character, you can kind of tell the difference. That one looks to be a little more narrow. Maybe, does it have boobs? I don't think so. I think it's just sort of narrow. But you might, if you're a guy, you might accidentally end up with a nice set of tits, even though that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it may not be what you're going for. So maybe they could add some kind of outline to show the curves and contours of each body type, sort of like a cartoonishly thick outline. That would be pretty helpful. I think the eyes are also like this. See, there's two different eyes. Cannot tell the difference. I think one may be bigger, maybe the pupil's bigger, but I don't know. There are lots of options, and the premium ones are very clearly marked. They've got this thingy up in the corner, so I guess it doesn't stick, but you can get close. You can see if they got the little symbol. That means when you put it on your character, it will cost the premium currency to use it. Now, the good thing is you can't really accidentally buy it, because in order for it to apply to your character, it'll tell you over here, and you actually have to pull that little lever to make the purchase. So even if you're not really able to see the little symbol, if you accidentally apply a premium cosmetic, you won't, as far as I can tell, you won't accidentally purchase it unless you pull this lever over here. So just make sure that says 0, and you won't be purchasing anything you don't want. There's these over here, so be aware of that. With the touch buttons again, stay away from those unless you want to spend money. Lastly, the colors for some parts are a bit off. Like the nose here looks really red. I feel like you should be guiding Santa's sleigh through a snowstorm or something. That's not how it looks when you go into an actual server. So just be aware of that. If you do have issues with like color blindness or something, I'm not sure if it's for the entire body, but it's mostly noticeable on the nose. So yeah, so again, just be aware of that. That may be an issue for some people. Well, even regardless, if you don't have color blindness, it could be an issue. That's it for the character creator, though. So on to the next thing. Okie dokie. Here we are on my private server. Every Quest user gets one free server, so you can play alone, but it is much funner to play with friends or family. The first thing I'll comment on here is graphics. The graphics of this game can be really pretty sometimes. A nice sunset or sunrise if you're at the top of a mountain or the top of a town hall. It's a big tower. It can be really nice and relaxing and peaceful. But the game isn't, it's not insane. So, like, it has good contrast. Like, see this bright green ground. You got these dark sticks. This is usually the case for most things. Why can I not grab this stick? Oh, that was weird. That doesn't have very good contrast, but mostly it does. On the ground like this, there's, flint. It's a black rock. Just pull it up out of the ground. There's, what else is there? That's a rock, just a regular rock. It's gray. Gray and green. Kind of hard to see, but still pretty easy to see. The grass is a bit hard to see, especially from a distance. You can't just grab it though. Actually, I'll keep that. There's a, what is that? A mushroom, looks like. Yep, there's a little red mushroom. Just eat that. Yeah, and the game doesn't really have, on Quest anyway, it doesn't have shadows for hardware limitations. There are shadows on PC, but they're not insane. I know for a lot of people, including myself, shadows on the ground can create a lot of visual noise and make it hard to see smaller things. It just sort of, well, it just makes noise. So having a clear, non-shadowy ground is better, in my opinion. So a good example of this contrast is the main source of food, the spreagle. That's what they're called. It's sort of a weird chicken kind of dodo thing. Oh, and they attack you. Let's see, it's this dark blue bird on this dark green background. So it's really easy to see. Maybe not so much from a distance, but once you're up close enough to where you can hear them, they are fairly easy to see. Oh, they're attacking each other now. Oh, so sorry. And that actually goes for the meat too. The meat and feathers. Well, that's a red feather. That's actually a pretty good feather. But the meat is also blue, so it's easy to see when it's on the ground. You can grab it. Actually, I'll keep that too. You can always use more meat. And another good thing is the audio. It's directional audio, so you can hear I almost called them chickens, the spreagles. You can hear it from, there's one over there, and you can hear it from the right side, or I think there's one over there too. You can hear it from the left side. Yep, there he is. So one thing to note about this game is it gets pretty dark. And I mean really dark. Especially in the mines, it gets pitch black. You will die if you don't have a light. Now, it's pretty dark right now, just on the overworld. And I know for some people, a poorly lit room can mean complete blindness. That's not the case for me, but I've had friends who were like that, who needed very bright light all the time, or they wouldn't see. So, this may be a concern for you. Luckily, you can have torches. So light that with a flint rock. And you can make your own light. It's going to make it easier to see things on the ground. Pick those up, stick. And it does make the world a little brighter. And I'm pretty sure I don't see the moon, but it may just because I have my torch. It seemed to have gotten a little bit lighter. Come on, torch, go out. Yeah, see, it's still pretty dark, but it did get a little bit of that night glow that you might expect with like a full moon or something, even though I can't actually find the moon. But you do have torches, if that is still too dark for you. Now, one downside with the quest and its hardware limitations is that there is a render distance, a draw distance. So, I'm not sure how far it is. If I just keep going back and back and back towards this way, those lights over there should eventually go out. They're not, oh, there they go, see? So they went out. They're not actually out. Anyone over there would still see them. But for me, the lights have gone out. So let's say I didn't have a torch, or let's say if that was a friend. Actually, oh, I have a great idea. Let's light this. Stick it in the ground. Let's pretend this was a friend, just walking around with a torch. So there's that light. Now, if I'm trying to find hold on to that for a second. If I'm trying to find my way around the city, if I'm far away from something, you may not be able to find your way using lights, because it's not until you get about, where is it? About this close, the lights actually turn on for you. Now, remember that torch over there we put? Let's say that was a friend. Oh, I can still see it, kind of, actually. But I think I'm just not far enough away. If that were a friend walking around, say in the mines or something, you may lose track of where they are because you can't see their light because of the render distance. So keep that in mind. Finding your friends, or it may be easy to lose your friends or your teammates if you really need the torchlight to know where they are.
Quick side note, the directional audio I mentioned earlier also applies to the in-game voice chat. So if you're using that instead of the Quest party chat, you'll be able to tell which direction your friend is coming from, as well as how far away they are based on their volume.
Flew at torches. But yes, render distance is a thing on Quest. I'm not sure if it's the same for PC, but it's definitely a thing for Quest. Last thing about the sort of graphics and UI stuff, there is this bar, these bars on your arm. They're kind of hard to see for me, and so I imagine they'd probably be kind of hard to see for everyone else as well. There is three bars. There's one that's your health, one that's your like nutrition level, and then one that's your saturation. So when you eat food, your saturation will go up, and when it's full, that's when you're full, and it'll give you a little bit of nutrition as well. And then your health is your health, of course. But it's kind of hard to see. You can't quite get it closer to your face, and it only pops up when it's in a certain position. So that may be difficult for others to see as well. The other thing is the quick menu, the hand menu, which is where all your you can exit the game, you can mute yourself, it's all the quick settings. There is also, I think, like nameplate settings, but see, this is the problem, is it's really hard to read. I'm pretty sure that says names, or nameplates, but the font is really small, and it's just not very good contrast on here. And you can't really get close to it, because it kind of freaks out. But on the nameplates note, I haven't actually been able to see or even notice any nameplates above other players. So I don't know, maybe I just have it turned off, or they're possibly just really hard to see. It could be either way. Same goes for this button, which is you can mute all players or your friends. It's the like chat audio settings. Now, I think it's on all. Again, it's really hard to read. So I imagine you probably have some difficulty reading it as well if you're low vision. But there's only 3 settings. I think it's you hear everyone, then you switch, and it goes to you only hear friends, then you switch, then I think it goes to no one. So then everybody will be muted, and then you can do it again, and it will go back to everyone, so you can hear everyone. But that's it. I think the symbol does change as well. Did that change? Yeah, look, there's like a little slash. It's not very easy to see, though. So we go back to all. And then same thing with the mic. There's just a little slash. That is pretty easy to see. At least it is for me. So now I'm muted. Now I'm unmuted so others can hear me. And you do have this quick setting for if there's something you can't see, you can get yourself lower or higher. It makes sure, say, like I'm about this high. If I make myself lower, did it work? There we go. See, now I'm shorter. So that's good for if you need to see something on a shelf. If you're having trouble seeing it, you can just make yourself taller. And we'll talk about inventories in a minute. But that's all for UI and graphics, so on to the next thing. Next up on our list, inventories. Oh, that looked neat, didn't it? All the inventories in the game are physically in the world, so there are no menus. They're like this. They're either a shelf, or they're docked on your belt, or they're in your backpack, which means you can get closer to them. You can see, it eventually disappears, but you can get pretty close. Same thing with the backpack. I can see I got my axe there, my little ball of grass, a rock, some dynamite. That's fun. And these little ones on the side are kind of hard just to get to, but they're still easy to see. You can get close to them. Let's have some to eat. Now, on PC, all the inventory bubbles would be transparent. So they would just be a see-through shiny bubble with something floating in them. I don't like that very much, so I'm glad on Quest they're not transparent. They have a nice solid dark gray background, making it easy to see whatever's in there. Like that's an arrow, that's dynamite, that's a bunch of bones, and the numbers are pretty easy to see too. Again, if you can't see them, you can always get closer. They disappear eventually, but like that's 16, that's 10, what is that? Is that 16 or 15? That's 15. So the numbers are pretty easy to see. The only thing that isn't, come over here, on some of these community inventories, these are like the sticks. I have no idea what those are, what that number is. I think that's 163, because that's clearly visible, but then these are blocked by the sticks. And I think that's the only one that happens with. Here with the wood, it doesn't happen. But in most things, the numbers are pretty easy to tell. Now, down on your inventory, let's say I had a bunch of rocks. I only have one down there right now, but let's put a bunch of rocks down there. Oops. I don't know what that number is. It's kind of hard to see. And, I mean, it's really hard to see for me. You can pull the dock up. That was that dock toggle setting earlier we saw in the accessibility menu. I still can't really see that, so that is an issue. But you can pull out this little bag, and so now I know that's 42. I think these only hold a stack size of 50, and it's the same stack size as the bag. So if you had more in there, you would pull it all out, and it would say 50. So a bit inconvenient to have to check it each time to pull the bag out, but it's a workaround. So one other issue with, not really with inventory, but just with sort of items. Some items are just really, really small. Like this item. It's kind of hard to see in the inventory bubble. There is 14 of them. If I pull one out, it's pretty small. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's a pommel? Goes on the end of a sword or something? But see, the other issue is you can only get things so close to your face before they start like clipping into the camera and disappearing. So like if I find something even smaller, like this, I said this was an arrow, but it is pretty small to tell. If I oops, that's a whole bag. If I pull one out, see, you can only get it so close. There's this little arrowhead, that's what I was looking for, but I guess I ran out of them. Is pretty small, so you can only get it so close to try to figure out what it is before it starts disappearing. So that might be an issue for some people who have really low vision. It's kind of an issue for me, but not much. But if maybe your vision is even worse than mine, it would be a pretty big issue. Another thing that might be kind of difficult to see is the difference between sandstone and regular stone. Now, it's pretty easy to see here because they're right next to each other. If you're colorblind, though, it might actually still be pretty hard because pretty much the only difference is their color. See, this one is a brown color, and this one is more of a gray color. This one does have, looks like it has like veins in it, though, or cracks, whereas this one appears to just be smooth. But it could still be pretty hard to tell, and in fact, it is pretty hard to tell the difference if you're down in the mine where it's dark, or if you're just out and there aren't any stone rocks, but there are sandstone rocks. You might think you're getting stone, but you're actually not. You're just getting sandstone. If you are having trouble distinguishing the difference between sandstone and regular stone, or just any other item like that, inventories do have tactile feedback, or haptic feedback. So when I put the rock over this bubble, the bubble starts pulsing, but my controller is actually vibrating as well. Whereas when I put it over here, nothing is happening. So I'm like, oh, where's the bubble? Oh, there it is. So even if you don't see the bubble pulsing, you can feel it. And the same thing happens in your book bag. So say if it's dark and you don't realize your pickaxe is there, it just kind of looks like a dark bubble. You can feel it. It's like click, 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 nothing. Click, because there's a pile of grass I could put it in with. Nothing, 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 nothing. So, inventories do have haptic feedback. Also, something to take note of is that bundles of grass and rope knots also look very similar. Now, again, when they're right next to each other, not really. This one is much brighter, and it's got these dark lines in it, and this one is all dark. But when you're going through a chest, or if you're in the mines or something like that, sometimes you'll run across either of these. Sometimes you'll run across grass bundles or rope knots, and it can be really hard to tell the difference. So I would appreciate if maybe they, I don't know, switched up the texture or something, made it look like really rough like rope, or just made it a different model or something. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You may be thinking you're getting grass, or you may think you're getting rope, but actually you're getting the opposite thing. In the same vein of things looking similar, we're here at the blacksmith where all the ores and metals are, and I'll do this when it's dark to sort of simulate being down in the mine. These ores look really similar. Gold is pretty light, but iron and copper, still pretty similar looking. Again, if you're colorblind, this may be pretty difficult. You'd really have to pay attention to the shape. This one's sort of more pointy, whereas this one is more smooth, like this big glob in the middle. But even if you're not colorblind, I'm not, and I still have some difficulty trying to distinguish which is which. And especially with silver, that looks a lot like iron, like a whole lot like iron. And the same thing with the metals. So iron doesn't look too similar to anything. Maybe it would for silver, but we don't. Oh, actually it does. We do have a silver, and yeah, it looks pretty similar, again, to silver. But the one I always have trouble with is copper. And just set my torch down. Gold. We'll get close to the torch. See, copper and gold look very similar. And this transfers over to the actual tools and weapons you make out of this metal. So you might think you're getting a gold axe or a gold sword, when actually it's just copper. So, especially down in the mines when you're looting, that can be pretty difficult to tell the difference. The actual deposits for the different ores, like the big rock that you have to hit with your pickaxe to get the chunks out of, those actually look really similar as well. You really have to pay attention to the shape. Copper is more spiky, iron is more like squared, and gold is more round. I'm not sure what silver looks like, but they all have similar color, so just be aware of that. And if you're going to be going out in the mines, pay attention to the shape, because again, you don't want to waste an entire mining trip thinking you're getting all the good loot when you just have like basic stuff. But that's all for our inventory and items stuff. My torch died, so it's probably a good time to move on to the next thing. Next thing we'll be looking at is carpentry and crafting. So, all the recipes are in these books, and they're pretty easy to see usually. The carpentry ones are super easy because the only thing to note is how many bundles of wood, and then the thing that you'll get out of the recipe. So like that's a ladle, that's it's like a weird bowl handle kind of thing. It's a long handle, here's a little handle, here's some dice. So they're pretty large, easy to see. There are some problem with pages I'll get onto in a minute, but from now, I'll just show you how this works. Put your wood on the deck. And it turns into a little block. Now, this will point to the spot you need to chisel off. So this really bright blue area that you need to chisel off. So then you just chisel it off. And it's really easy to see because on the dark wood, contrasts great with the white or really light blue glowing thing that it wants you to chisel off. You can flip it using that. I'll show you. But I usually don't. And once all the blue highlighted things are gone and this doesn't have like an arrow coming off of it, then that's how you know you can just chisel wherever. And there you go, dice. Crafting done in the crafting house on the crafting table is pretty similar to carpentry, except you're not chiseling things, you're putting things together. So you take your book, you find the recipe. Again, these are pretty easy to see. The thing you're getting tells you like that's a bag, it looks like, a little pouch, 2 inventory slots. The problem is seeing the quantity and, oh, there goes that book, seeing the material needed and the quantity. So if you try to get really close, page just disappears, because again, you can only get so close to things. But I think that's leather, and it looks like you need 2 of them, because they use these lines. I'm pretty sure that's leather strips. Looks like you need only 1. And then a buckle, I'm assuming, because most bags need a buckle, and there's only 1. But see, the only reason I know that is because I've crafted the bag before, so I know the things required, I just don't know what specifically these pictures are. But so that's one concern. If you are unable to see this, then crafting is going to be pretty hard to do. Now, actually doing the crafting isn't all that hard. You see this table is pretty low. You can adjust the height, not with a rock. You just crank this thing, table goes up, there you go, as high as you need it. And you can just walk right in the middle of the table, you can get right up on it to see what you need. So real quick, I've just gotten all the materials required to make this little bag. I've got our trusty hammer here. I think it's a copper hammer, maybe it's a gold hammer. Again, can't tell the difference. But it'll tell you where this blue area is. I know it's kind of hard to see on the background, so that may be an issue. Blue on blue, not great. But it'll turn green when you have the right material in the right location, and not even really that. It's pretty forgiving. See how far I am away and it turns green. And it'll take it. You just let go and it goes on. So you take your other material. That's another leather I think it wants. It is kind of hard to tell what it wants sometimes, but I mean, it won't let you put it on there if it's not the right material, so it's just sort of a guessing game. You put that on there, and there's these little nails. Now, sometimes they can be hard to see where they pop up, so you may miss them, and if you don't get to them in time, it's a few seconds, the material will just pop back off. So we'll just wait for it. There it goes. See, it just pops off, doesn't damage it, so you can just put it back on, and hopefully you'll eventually remember or see where all those nails were. So let's just try to hammer these in. It's not going. There it goes. Okay. You gotta be careful, you will damage and break them. So let's add a leather strip. That one's in. And see, it broke. So if you're not careful, it will break. It is kind of hard to, well, actually really hard to tell when it's about to break. So keep that in mind. You got to be really careful when you're crafting things, because if you hit it too hard, the material will break, and that material's gone forever. So now I'll have to go get more leather strips. Okay, there, we've done it. It only took me like 4 tries. So, thing to note is this is really small. And, I mean, we're really close to it, so it's kind of easy to see. But on a really big backpack, this buckle, where it wants to buckle, sometimes there's a lot of them, and they can be pretty small, and which can be really hard to see. So we'll just take that, well, bump, there we go, and we have a little bag now. So that's all for carpentry and crafting. On to the next thing. One of the other forms of crafting in A Township Tale is blacksmithing. And since my brother also plays on this server, and he likes to dig up the geodes and boxes in the mine, so we're going to make him a shovel and be nice. Now, being a blacksmith is actually pretty easy if you're blind. See, that's a huge number, 5. It's a very clear image of what you're getting. It looks like a shovel head. And that's pretty much it. We're just going to set that down there for now. Whatever. And we're going to come up here, and I will be making some red iron, because it's pretty good material. We're just going to take our materials, put them in this bucket, and close it. Now you can see, you can get pretty close and see there's 3 copper and 2 copper now, 2 iron. And you can see this little flame thingy that shows you how much the next one is going. Down here, you can also see how much coal or fuel is in, it takes coal or wood, is in the furnace. And you can just open it there and put it in there. If you're not getting the furnace, you will die. And over here, there we go, 4 red iron. Again, you can get pretty close, see how much is in there, see what it is. You actually need 5 red iron. So we're going to take our plate. It did say 5, yep. Put it up there, again, with the haptic feedback, so you know where you're sticking it. Come back up here. And plop that in there. It won't show up there because it's already cooking. It'll go in there. See, it's smoking. Now you can pump the bellows to make it go faster. Oh, finished already. And there you go. It'll drop down here. You can see it in this bucket. Just grab it. Now we just need a handle for it. Oh, actually, first we need to actually forge it, hammer it. So we'll take it out here. And this is the part that can be kind of hard if you're visually impaired. Set that there so it gets nice and hot. I need a hammer. Is that? I don't know if this is a blacksmithing hammer, but it's gonna be today. So you can, hopefully you can see, this changes color and it starts like sparkling. That's how you know it's able to be hammered. So we can grab that, get over here to our blacksmith or our anvil and just start whacking away at it. Now, the hard part to tell is if you're blind, it will actually change. If you're doing like a blade or something, the parts will get smoother and more down to like an actual blade edge rather than this blunt, how it is now. That is really hard to see, so be aware of that. And you can see when it stops sparkling, that's when you need to heat it up again. So it's heated, bring it over here. But easy solution to that is just whack it everywhere. It will Just make sure you're getting good coverage, hitting it. And there you go. When it flashes like that and stops glowing, that's how you know it's done. So, kind of difficult. You can't really see the progress, but you at least know when it's done. And once it's done, you can put it on a handle and you'll have a shovel. And that's pretty much blacksmithing. That's it. Pretty easy to do. Again, there's that one difficulty. You can't tell the progress, but if you just get good coverage everywhere, you will eventually finish it. But it might be difficult if there's that one little spot you just can't seem to figure out why it's not finishing. But that's all. That's all for blacksmithing. So I guess I'll take this back to the carpenter shop and slap a handle on it. But for now, on to the next thing. One of the many ways you can be productive in A Township Tale is by woodcutting. I hear you asking, can a blind person really be a lumberjack? And to that I say, probably. It's super easy. You just take a stick and a flint and attach it to the side. That's one of the things I forgot to mention earlier with the crafting. Most of the crafting in this game is physical. So this goes for like that shovel we made earlier. You just take that and attach it to a handle or any other thing. It's the same mechanic. It'll show you two green things, two green areas, and when they turn blue or white, you just let go and they snap together. So here we have a rudimentary axe. And that's pretty much all there is to it. You just hit tree. Tree fall down. And that's pretty much it. You keep hitting the tree and it eventually breaks into smaller logs. Now I'm getting that effect because I have a skill point in woodcutting. There, it breaks apart. And you break that piece into logs, which you can then collect. There really is no downside to this one. It's my preferred profession, if you will. And the only thing I could possibly see is if you're maybe not cutting in the right spot, it may be hard to see the line, but even so, it'll still go. See, I'm not hitting it right in where the crack is, but it's still going. So there really kind of is no difficulty with this. Now the thing is, here's sort of a safe spot, but you have to go deeper into the sort of woods, and there are enemies in there, so I guess that could be considered a downside. But other than that, it's sort of fun, relaxing, I guess you could say relaxing, and yeah, super not hard to do at all, unless maybe if you're completely blind, but again, I imagine if you're completely blind, playing VR is a struggle in general. So yeah, that's all there really is for woodcutting. On to the next thing. These are the mines. They are terrifying. Completely dark. As you can see, the only light I have is this torch, or this lantern, and this solitary torch near the exit. Honestly, the atmosphere is actually pretty cool down here. You have this sort of creepy cave wind noise, and you can hear the scraping and clacking of the monsters around you. These like rock monsters that sort of shuffle around and they will attack you. But it is pretty rewarding if you can survive down here. Now, a couple things. Some of the ores, as I mentioned earlier, are pretty hard to tell what they are. So this, it's really dark, pretty obviously coal. It's the only ore that looks like this. Dark clumps. And the ore itself, or the chunks themselves, are also clumps. But stuff like this, see, I don't know if that's regular stone or if that's sandstone. It looks really smooth, so I'm thinking it might be sandstone. Now, one of the good things about the mines is on some of the lower levels there are these crystals that glow. So those are pretty easy to find, unlike these ores, which for the most part just look like regular rocks until you get close to them, but they're also pretty hard to see, even if you get close to them. See, like this, I thought this was an ore at first, but it's not. It's just you can't even hit it. It's just a sort of environmental decoration rock. But the crystals, they glow, so if you're low vision, being a crystal hunter might actually be a pretty good job for you, because they're easy to spot. Now, since it is so dark, the enemies can be kind of hard to see, though I don't think there are any enemies on this level at the moment. I think all the scratching and clanking I'm hearing is from the next level down, which can be kind of confusing. We do again have that directional audio, but in the mines you can hear stuff from floors below you and floors above you. So it can be kind of confusing, but it can actually be kind of helpful. Me and my brother have discovered that if you sort of can't find the way down, if you just listen for the monsters, they can sort of guide you to the exit to get down to the next level. I can't seem to find any ore right now. Oh wait, here's some. See, like this is copper, but see, it kind of looks like that. It's darker, but it kind of just looks like another rock. Hit that. There we go. Good. That's stone. There's some copper. So that's the mines. I would not recommend going down alone, which is why I'm only on the first level and not like level 30, because that would be crazy. Take a friend. It's much funner anyway. But yeah, that's the mines. On to the next thing. Second to last is combat. These are just training dummies. And I've got my good old double-ended bloody froggy stabby stick. As I got red iron, it's got these little froggy face things, and it's stabby stick. And most of the melee, or most of the combat in this game is melee, with the exception of bows, and there are throwing knives, so I guess that's melee, but it's thrown melee. But mostly, you can just walk right up to something and stab it. Melee combat can be great if you're blind, because as any visually impaired person knows, trying to aim with a gun or with a bow or something can be quite difficult when you can't even see your target. So yeah, melee. Now, most of the creatures in the game also do melee. You see me kill a few of those little sprinkles, the blue chicken things earlier. They jump at you and sort of slash. There's these worm things. I'm going to try to get a few of them to spawn. They do this sort of slashing thing. But some creatures also shoot you, and they shoot you from quite a distance. So that can be a sort of downside of combat in this game, is that a creature might spawn way off in the distance, and you may not realize it, and they will snipe you. They'll shoot you from quite far away. Okay, we're going to see if we can get some of these worm guys to spawn. There are these tree guys in this other sort of area. Oh, here's a perfect example. See, they'll try to shoot me, and they'll shoot from far away too. So put over here, but you can just get right up to them and stab them. And you may have heard there is an audio cue. Oh, here's another one. Where's he coming from? Oh, over there. There's an audio cue. Oh, and they get you and they slow you down. But when they come up from the ground, there's this sort of rumble. So that's the great thing about the worms. Fighting worms are super easy, because you always know when one of them is going to spawn. The rock monsters, you can hear them shuffling around. They sort of clink and grind down in the mines. The tree monsters, they kind of make noise, but not really when they spawn. They just kind of appear. So that's pretty much combat in a nutshell. Oh, also, again, we are on Quest. On PC, there are a few other creatures that we don't have yet on Quest, so I can't really show you them, and I don't know anything about them. So be aware of that if you plan on playing the PC version and not the Quest version. That's all for combat. On to the next thing. And last but not least, we have cooking. Cooking is another pretty easy thing to do if you are low vision or blind. So I've already got a pot full of water. Put the lantern down there. So let's just get a fire going. There we go. Now, when the water boils, you can hear it very clearly. It's bubbling, and there's these big old bubbles in them. So what we're going to do... Oh, we've already got our meat. Okay, we're going to just make a basic meat stew. And each thing is 4 ingredients. So just put this one in. Or not. Try that again. And there'll be a flash, and then you'll see it disappear. It's pretty clear. And then you can just put the next one in. That'll flash and disappear again. The next one. Flash, disappear. And the last one, it'll disappear, and you see this big flash, and then there's big white tendrils of smoke, steam coming off of it, and you just let that cook.
Quick side note, cooking other food is pretty straightforward as well. You just put it near a fire, there'll be white smoke, and when it's done, there'll be a little poof, and then it'll change color, and there will be black smoke.
And there you go. There'll be another big flash, and all the smoke will start turning black. So we're going to quickly pull our stew away from the lantern, so it doesn't burn. And the bubbling will stop, and that's how you know it's done. And let's go ahead and put a little salt in here, why not? And poof, that disappears too. So that's cooking. It's fairly simple. There's not much complex things to see, so if you're blind, it's a great thing to do, and it really benefits the rest of the players on your server. And that's all. One thing I did remember after the fact is that the recipes are a bit hard to read. So, again, because of the reason you can't get that close to them, it's kind of hard to tell what exactly each thing wants. So that looks like maybe some mushroom. Oh, it's just all mushrooms. Okay. But then heart, but how much though does it give you? That's kind of hard to see. Let's find another recipe. Like that, I don't know what that is. Maybe another mushroom. That, not sure. I think another mushroom. And looks like that gives you food. Again, kind of hard to tell how much though. So, if you're going to be a cook, keep that in mind. But then again, real cooks, they don't need recipes, right? Cooking is more art than science, isn't it? So for real this time, that's all for cooking. Okie dokie, that is going to do it for my review of A Township Tale. I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10 as far as accessibility and playability is concerned if you're blind. If you can play pretty much... If you can play VR and like Super Hot and Job Simulator and any of that, you can play this game. You may have some difficulty with some things, but you will be able to play this game for the most part. There are some improvements they could make, like making pages easier to read and some of the other things easier to see, but otherwise, a solid game, fun, relaxing, friendly community, and just a nice game. Township devs, if you are listening, you know, there are a lot more blind and visually impaired, low vision users of VR than you probably realize. So, you clearly have some accessibility in mind, but if you could go ahead and either maybe fix some of the issues I addressed or implement some more accessibility features in regards to low vision, you'd be doing us all a great service, and we'd love you that much more. Well, that is all for now. But stay tuned, because I've got more videos in the works, so be sure and like and subscribe and all that other stuff. And if there's something I didn't address, or maybe you have more questions about something I did address, be sure and leave them in the comments, and I will reply to them and try to answer your questions the best I can. But that is all for today. I'm Helix. See you later. Man, look at that view.